Shimla, once a peaceful and serene hill station, has long been known for its picturesque beauty and cool weather. But nestled in its deep woods, far from the bustling town, lies a place untouched by daylight, Chudail Baudi, the Witch's Well. Local legend speaks of dark forces tied to this eerie location, a well that has witnessed more than it should. Many consider it a relic of horror, for it was here that a vengeful spirit, an apparition, was born. One evening, a group of young adventurers, curious about the stories they had heard around bonfires and in local taverns, decided to venture into the wild terrain to uncover the truth behind the tale. Neha, Aman, Arjun, and Pooja were all eager for some adventure, young and fearless, and they dismissed the warnings of old men in the town, laughing at tales of a haunted well. "I don't believe in ghosts," Neha said as they started on the trail, her flashlight casting long, stretching shadows on the trees. "It's just a spooky old legend." A man chuckled. "Yeah, right. Let's see what this witch really is. Just another superstition." The journey up to the well was treacherous. The moon was obscured by thick clouds, and the mist, which had begun to settle across the woods, made the path more difficult to navigate. Silence pervaded, save for the sound of distant owls hooting and the crunch of leaves beneath their feet. As they approached the well, an unsettling feeling began to grow among them. The dense trees opened to reveal a large stone well, surrounded by overgrown vines and unkempt shrubs. It was nearly covered in darkness. An ancient, moss-covered rope lay next to the opening. Pooja stood back, the air heavy with an inexplicable dread. "This place feels wrong," she murmured, though no one paid much attention. Neha, eager to prove there was no danger, stepped toward the well and peered inside. The depths were impossible to gauge, an abyss of blackness. The group stood around it, their heartbeats matching the sudden thrum of the surrounding woods. "It's just a well," Arjun scoffed. "Let's see what's at the bottom." He picked up the frayed rope and began to lower it inside. But just as the rope slipped out of his hands, a deep whisper echoed from the depths, cold and hushed. A voice seemed to claw at the walls of their minds. "Leave! Now!" Everyone froze. "What? What was that?" Arjun stammered. Neha and Aman exchanged nervous glances. The wind had begun to pick up, carrying the scent of damp earth and decay, a smell that seemed to rise from the well itself. Pooja, pale and shaking, grabbed Neha's arm. It's real. There's something down there. We need to go," she urged. But before anyone could react, the air grew ice cold, and the shadows around them shifted. Figures seemed to move in the periphery of their vision, flickers of something dark and sinister. "Go," the voice spoke again, only louder this time, more menacing. Suddenly they heard a low, growling noise, like the warning of a predator. They whipped around to see a shape emerging from the darkness, a pale woman in tattered old clothes with wild, unkempt hair and skin as white as bone. Her eyes glowed with an unnatural yellow hue. "Get away from the well," the figure hissed. In sheer panic, the group turned to flee, but the ground beneath them seemed to shift. The trees that lined the path blocked their escape, their trunks twisted and unnaturally contorted. It was as if they had entered another world, a dimension governed by the sinister force they had so carelessly approached. Then one by one, the adventurers began to feel something cold and unyielding pressing in on them. Neha tried to scream, but her voice failed. Her feet slipped from under her as the ground began to swallow her. Aman yanked her back, but his hands trembled too much to hold her. "Please help me!" Neha cried out in terror, but the shadows swirled, pulling her into the earth. It was Arjun's voice that broke through the fear. "Get the rope, pull her back." But as he looked down to grab the rope, something else tugged at his soul, an immense, suffocating pressure. Turning slowly, he saw the woman in the well's depths, staring at him with a wicked grin. "She's already mine," the spirit taunted. Her voice was no longer a whisper, but a shriek. It echoed like 1,000 cries for help that were lost to the night. The rope frayed as if unseen hands were playing with it. Aman yanked it, trying to salvage what was left of their friend, but to no avail. The woman crept closer, her feet now floating a mere inch from the ground, her appearance growing more translucent with each passing moment. "Your souls belong here," Forever, she croaked. In desperation, Pooja began to chant an ancient prayer her grandmother had taught her. The words of power slipped from her lips, though they felt like they were drowning in the growing dread. The witch halted. Her eyes narrowed, studying the girl. With a sudden gesture, she beckoned Pooja to come closer. "Do you really think you can stop me with your futile words, little girl?" But as Pooja continued, an unseen force burst from the ground, shaking the trees and scattering leaves. The witch shrieked, a terrible, shrieking wail as the mist around them thickened. The next thing they knew, they were back at the edge of the forest, trembling in the safety of the moonlight. But they had seen the price of ignoring the warnings. They had witnessed what lies beneath Shimla's still surface. The witch's well didn't just claim souls. It called upon those too weak to leave and had already decided who would be next.